My name is Ariana Thomas, and I am the founder of your ABA space, and welcome to my video. So I just want to give an overview of myself, and I hope to continue to just make videos for people. I want to keep them kind of short and just tell you about my journey and then give you my insight on different questions and things that I just see that people ask a lot. So first, I'm just gonna give you an overview of my experience in the ABA field. So I started in the ABA field about 5 years ago, really as not even a RBT, but just starting to be a RBT. So I completed the 40 hours, did my competency, and then took the exam. I worked for a bigger company at the time, so they pay for everything. They pay for the exam, so I didn't have to worry about those things. But I know sometimes that isn't everyone's case, so it may look a little bit different for you, but that is the route that you have to take with taking the 40 hours, doing the competency, and then taking the Pearson exam. Pause. Now listen to me when I say this. You do not have to be an RBT to collect hours to be a BCABA or a BCBA. Let me say that again. You do not have to be an RBT to collect hours as a BCABA or a BCBA. Now, I'm saying this to say I usually see questions, well, how do I get in the ABA field if I'm not an RBT, or if I can't find a place, or I live in a rural area and we don't have RBTs? That is fine. There are many ways to collect your hours with remote supervisors in your state, in your sub-discipline. If you don't want to do the traditional, just clinical route of working with the ASD population, there's ways to do that. So don't just think that you have to be a RBT to become a BCBA or a BCABA. Now, I'm not saying that it's not good experience to be an RBT. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that that's not the route that everyone has to take, so don't think that you have to take that route. I really think, I'm not gonna say I think, I know that that is a question that a lot of people ask, and I really feel like there's a misconception on that. So I just wanted to start off by saying that you do not have to be an RBT to become a behavior analyst. You have to find a remote supervisor who is willing to give you your supervision. Now that we got that, now I need you to listen to the next thing, because this is often a question that is asked as well. Do I have to find a supervisor that is within my state? The BCaBA has answered this question, and their answer is to be a BCBA. It really doesn't matter to them. However, if you are in a state that has licensure, you need to have a licensed behavior in that state, because the state may stop you from practicing within that state if you don't have someone signing off on your hours who has license in that state. So behavior analysts can be licensed in many different states if they choose to. So it's always important to verify on the board websites, on the either state board websites, to see if a behavior analyst is licensed in a state. Most states have licensures. I want to say over 30 something states have licensures, and only a few don't now at this point. So it's really important to make sure that whether your state has licensure or not. And the BCaBA does have a page that shows you and lists every state out in the licensure board that is associated with it. So please check that out, because like I said, that's a question that is always being asked, and the only way to really know is to check and verify and make sure. So that's my next tip, is to make sure they're verified. Another tip is to make sure they have the 8-hour supervision course. Most people do, but better safe than sorry. So check it out. Make sure that your supervisor has that 8-hour supervision course. Now we got that figured out. So far, know that you don't have to be a RBT to be a behavior analyst. We know that you need to check the state licensure when looking for supervisors. And we know that you need to make sure that they have the 8-hour supervision training. Next one, you also need to make sure that you don't start collecting hours until your first behavior analytic course. Now, people often ask this question, and I think maybe they're just asking just to verify, but you cannot start your supervision hours until you take a class that is in the verified course sequence, your first behavior analytic class. So make sure that you have those classes before you start collecting hours, because if you start collecting hours before that first behavior analytic class, it won't count. So we don't want it not counting. So, make sure that you start only after that class has started. The next thing that people often ask about is restricted and unrestricted hours. So restrict is those direct hours. Usually you get them when you're in RBT. They can be up to 40% of your total hours. However, you do not necessarily have to collect restricted hours. Like I said, you can collect your hours with the remote supervisors. So if you do take that route, you most likely will have way more unrestricted hours, because those are the hours that those are the kind of activities that you're going to be doing. So those are the type of hours that you're going to be collecting. Now, I have personally had experience with getting supervisees who had way too many restricted hours. Let me tell you, it is a hassle to think that you're getting close to being done and you're not, because you didn't look at the percentages between restricted and unrestricted. So this is my tip to help you with this. My advice is to collect initially, try to do half and half. So if you do 80 hours a month, try to do 40 restricted, 40 unrestricted. That'll keep it balanced for the most part. Now, I know some companies make you collect all your restricted first, or at least most of it, before you get unrestricted activities. So that might make it a bit hard. But even then, watch those numbers to make sure you're not exceeding the restricted. If you do, math is hard sometimes. If you do, let me use my watch right now. So I did concentrated hours, not supervised. So if you had 1,500 times 0.4 is 600 hours. So you can't have more than 400 restricted hours, 600 restricted hours, and 900 unrestricted hours. So once you start hitting those numbers that equal to the 40%, please stop collecting hours. Do not continue to collect restricted hours. Your percentage is never going to get equal, and that's not fun. So don't do it. Those are my tips on supervision. If you have any more questions, you can pop them in the comment. And I also have a blog about supervision, and I'll link it somewhere so that you can take a look at that blog and get some more information. So thank you for tuning in, and